This video is demonstrating an FTP test. The FTP test is accessed from the menu screen, and then you scroll down and select FTP. On this bike, we have the option of an 8 or 20-minute test. We've chosen to show you the 8-minute test. Now note this, there is no warm-up built in to the test, so you need to be prepared when you press go. FTP stands for Functional Threshold Power. It is a measurement of work. The score you receive is the average amount of work you do throughout the entire test, meaning you need to keep your work rate as high as possible throughout the entire ride. That could mean that you ride steadily for 15 minutes to prepare yourself before going into the menu and selecting FTP. The FTP test done over 8 minutes is a big challenge. What the test does is actually predict how much power you can produce across an entire hour. But we only ask you, in this example, to ride for 8, and then the console does a mathematical calculation to give you your score. Because this is an 8-minute test, it is a long time to work flat out. Therefore, some people will choose to psychologically split it into 4 2-minute sections. Other people will choose to go as hard as they possibly can from the very start and hold on for as long as possible. But what you need to remember is that your score is based upon your performance across the entire period of the test. That means you can't cruise along nice and slow for 7 minutes and then put in a spectacular performance in the final minute. It just doesn't work like that. Your score is based upon your average performance throughout the entire test. What you'll see Katie doing here is finding a comfortable, fast RPM on as much resistance as she can possibly push at that speed for 8 minutes. Throughout the whole test, the console will display how many watts you are generating. This is not your FTP. This is how many watts you are generating at that precise moment. Your FTP is displayed after a specific calculation has been performed upon your whole ride. People will often ask, can I stand up during an FTP test? The answer is yes. However, standing up is usually used when we're pushing against a heavy load or trying to accelerate. If you're pushing an excessively heavy load, you will not be going fast enough to also be generating enough power. You can do it for a short period of time, but to do it for 8 minutes, it's unlikely it's going to enhance your score. So sitting down is the preference when performing an FTP test. The first time you perform an FTP test, you probably won't time everything to perfection. The goal is to work as hard as possible, generating as many watts as possible throughout the entire duration of the test. The watts you generate are averaged out across the entire duration. This means there's no benefit to saving yourself for the last-minute sprint or working really hard in the first few minutes, then dropping off. Some people choose to go all out from the start and hold on as long as they can, whilst others manage their energy and spread it out across the entire test. Our rider, Katie, she went all out from the very start and then hung on for as long as she possibly could. She is focused on keeping her RPM consistently high throughout the entire ride and also pushing against as much resistance as possible, because a combination of medium to high cadence and challenging resistance is the key to a good FTP score. An FTP test sounds simple to perform. You work as hard as you can for either 8 minutes or 20 minutes. But the first time you do one, it won't feel simple. Practice makes perfect. The more often you put yourself through an FTP, the better. You will get better at managing your effort throughout the entire test. Once a month is a good goal. You'll get better at managing your workload and develop stronger technique the more often you do a test. And remember, an FTP is also very much classed as a workout, meaning it's a good use of everybody's time. You have to work hard to generate power. The last thing you want to do is waste any of that work. Channel all your effort into the pedals. It helps to stabilize your upper body. You touch the bike in 3 places: the handlebars, the pedals, and the saddle. Create a strong frame between those touch points. Control your torso with your core. Stabilize your upper body with your arms, chest, shoulders, and keep the force going into the pedals constant. As you approach the end of the FTP test, it's really tempting to slow down, give up, reduce the resistance. But it's really important that you keep working as hard as possible and to the very end. Every revolution of the pedal is increasing the number that you will finally get for your FTP score. The higher the score, the more power you can generate across an entire hour's workout. Breathe. The rhythm of your breathing is going to change a few times during an FTP ride. At the beginning, it may be relaxed, and towards the end, it could become deep and forced. Controlling your breath can help control your stress levels and will maintain a good oxygen and fuel supply to your muscles. Tune into your breathing and let it become another tool that you can use to improve your performance. If you know what your FTP score is, you can then talk to other cyclists and compare your score. But it's important to understand that weight influences your FTP. So you must take your FTP score and then divide that number by your weight in kilos. For example, if your FTP score is 220 and you weigh 100 kilos, divide 220 by 100, and that gives you 2.2 watts of power per kilo. When you finish, complete the FTP test, look at the screen, and you will see your score displayed.